This isn't just a story about a footballer. It's a story about loyalty, betrayal, and a man who followed the beat of his own heart, even when it led him straight into a storm. He was a hero and a traitor, a champion for two bitter rivals, and a player who fought for the badge on his chest with every ounce of his being. Until he didn't. This is the story of Carlos Tevez, and it's one you won't want to miss. So if you love stories that go beyond the pitch hit, that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because Legends in Football is just getting started. Our story begins not in the glamour of the Premier League, but on the tough, unforgiving streets of Fuerte Apache, a neighborhood in Buenos Aires where survival was a daily battle. This is where Carlos Alberto Martinez Tevez was forged. The prominent scar that runs down his neck and across his chest, the result of a childhood accident with boiling water, became a symbol of his resilience. He refused plastic surgery later in life, claiming the scars were a part of who he was, a permanent reminder of his past and the fire that fueled him. Football was his escape, his language, his everything. From the moment he first kicked a ball, it was clear he was different. He had a low center of gravity, the strength of a bull, and a ferocious, relentless work ethic. They called him El Apache for the neighborhood that raised him, and he played with all of its grit and defiance. He rose through the ranks at Boca Juniors, the club of his heart, becoming a hero to the passionate fans at La Bombonera. He won the Copa Libertadores, the Intercontinental Cup, beating a legendary AC Milan side and the hearts of a nation. But Europe, with its bright lights and unimaginable riches, always beckons. After a complex and controversial spell in Brazil with Corinthians Tevez, alongside his compatriot Javier Mascherano, made a shocking move to England. Not to a powerhouse like Manchester United or Chelsea, but to humble West Ham United. Nobody understood it. The deal was shrouded in mystery questions of third-party ownership that would later land West Ham in serious trouble. For months, Tevez struggled. The pace of the English game was frantic, the weather was bleak, and the team was plummeting towards relegation. He looked lost, a world-class talent adrift in a sea of mediocrity. But as the season reached its desperate climax, something clicked. The fighter from Fuerte Apache re-emerged. In the final 10 games, Tevez became a force of nature, scoring 7 crucial goals, including the winner on the final day of the season against none other than Manchester United at Old Trafford. He had single-handedly kept West Ham in the Premier League. He was a hero, a savior. The Hammers fans adored him, serenading him with, "There's only one Carlos Tevez." But they all knew deep down he was destined for a bigger stage. That bigger stage was Manchester United. Sir Alex Ferguson had seen enough. He saw the hunger, the tenacity, the sheer refusal to be beaten. He saw a player who could complement the dazzling skills of Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney. He saw a warrior. The transfer was once again complicated. A 2-year loan deal was eventually struck, and Carlos Tevez pulled on the famous red shirt. The Stretford End faithful fell in love with him instantly. He wasn't the most gifted player in that star-studded squad, but nobody worked harder. He chased every lost cause, harried every defender, and celebrated every goal with a raw, primal passion that resonated with the working-class soul of the club. He was the perfect Ferguson player. He, Rooney, and Ronaldo formed a terrifying attacking trident, a whirlwind of speed, skill, and aggression. They were fluid, interchangeable, and unstoppable. In his first season, Tevez was instrumental. He scored 19 goals, played with his heart on his sleeve, and helped United win both the Premier League and the coveted Champions League. Who could forget his coolly dispatched penalty in that dramatic shootout against Chelsea? In the pouring Moscow rain, he had reached the pinnacle of European football. He was a champion of England and a champion of Europe. He was loved, adored, a vital cog in one of the greatest teams on the planet. His second season was also a success. He scored 15 more goals, helped United win another Premier League title and the League Cup. The fans chanted "Fergie, sign him up" at every opportunity. It seemed a foregone conclusion that his loan would be made permanent. Tevez wanted to stay. He felt a connection with the fans, the history, the winning mentality of the club. But behind the scenes, things were beginning to sour. The arrival of Dimitar Berbatov from Tottenham shifted the dynamics. The suave, languid Bulgarian was a different type of player, more of an artist than a warrior. Ferguson began to favor Berbatov, and Tevez found himself on the bench more often than he liked. For a player like Tevez, who gives everything, being told to sit and watch is a deep personal insult. He felt disrespected, undervalued. He felt the club was dithering, not showing him the love and commitment he craved. The negotiations for his permanent transfer dragged on. Figures were discussed, offers were supposedly made and rejected. The wires of communication became crossed, tangled in a mess of agents, advisors, and club executives. Ferguson, a master of control, didn't like the complexity surrounding Tevez's ownership. He felt the players' camp was holding the club to ransom. Tevez, in turn, felt the club wasn't making a genuine effort. He felt like an afterthought. The final straw came during the 2009 Champions League final in Rome against Barcelona. United were comprehensively outplayed, losing 2-0. Tevez started on the bench. He was brought on at halftime, tasked with chasing a game that was already slipping away. He ran himself into the ground, a lone warrior fighting a losing battle. But it was too late. As he walked off the pitch that night, his head bowed in disappointment, he felt his time at Manchester United was over. The love affair had turned cold. He had given his all for the red shirt, but he no longer felt the club was willing to do the same for him. This is where the story takes its most dramatic turn. Imagine being in his position. You're a world-class player, a fan favorite, a double Premier League champion, and a Champions League winner. But you feel your manager has lost faith in you, and the club is hesitant to commit. You feel your loyalty hasn't been repaid. What would you do? Would you stay and fight for your place, hoping to win back the trust? Or would you listen to the whispers from across town from a rival who promises you not just a contract, but the chance to be the undisputed king? It's a huge dilemma. Let me know what you would have done in his shoes in the comments below. The whispers from across town were not just whispers. They were a siren song. Manchester City, newly rich after the Abu Dhabi United group takeover, were building an empire. They had the money to buy anyone, and they wanted to make a statement. They didn't just want to buy great players. They wanted to rattle the established order. They wanted to hurt Manchester United. And what better way to do that than by signing one of their own heroes? The move happened. Carlos Tevez, the warrior of the Stretford End, crossed the Great Divide. He swapped the red of United for the sky blue of City. It was an act of treason in the eyes of United fans. The man they had adored, the man they had sung for, had betrayed them for money, for the noisy neighbors, as Ferguson had so dismissively called them. The hurt was deep, and it was real. And then came the billboard. In a stroke of marketing genius and pure provocation, Manchester City erected a massive billboard in the city center. It was sky blue with a picture of a celebrating Tevez, arms outstretched. And the words, oh, the words were perfect. Welcome to Manchester. It was a direct, audacious shot at their rivals. The message was clear. Manchester was no longer just red. A new power had arrived, and Tevez was its face. The billboard ignited a firestorm. United fans were incandescent with rage. City fans were delirious with joy. The city was divided, and Carlos Tevez was the man standing squarely on the fault line. At City, he was everything he had wanted to be. At United, the main man. The undisputed star, the captain. The team was built around him. He was handed the number 32 shirt, the same number he wore at his beloved Boca, and he played with a renewed sense of purpose. He was on a mission to prove Ferguson and Manchester United wrong. And he did. He was magnificent. In his first season with City, he scored 29 goals. The season after, he scored 20 and captained the club to its first major trophy in 35 years, winning the FA Cup. He was the Premier League's top scorer. He was the heart and soul of the City project, the driving force behind their ascent. The fans at the Etihad Stadium worshipped him just as passionately as the fans at Old Trafford once had. He had found a new home, and he was thriving. But the fire that burned so brightly within Tevez could also be a destructive force. His time at City was not without its own controversies. The most infamous incident occurred in September 2011 during a Champions League match against Bayern Munich. City were 2-0 down, and manager Roberto Mancini wanted to bring Tevez on as a substitute. According to Mancini, Tevez refused to play. He refused to warm up. Tevez's side of the story was different. He claimed it was a misunderstanding, that he had already warmed up and didn't feel the need to again. But the damage was done. Mancini was furious. In the post-match press conference, he declared that as long as he was manager, Tevez would never play for Manchester City again. "He is finished with me." The Italian stated, his voice cold with anger. Tevez was exiled. He was fined, suspended, and told to train alone. He flew back to Argentina, and for months a bitter standoff ensued. It seemed his career at City, which had promised so much, was over in the most acrimonious way possible. The hero had become a pariah once more. Many thought they would never see him in a City shirt again. But football is a strange old game. As the 2011-12 season reached its thrilling conclusion, Manchester City found themselves locked in a titanic battle with Manchester United for the Premier League title. Mancini, swallowing his pride, realized he needed all the firepower he could get. He needed a warrior for the final push. An apology was issued, a truce was called, and Carlos Tevez was brought back from the cold. His return was a masterstroke. He provided a crucial boost to the team, scoring vital goals, including a hat-trick against Norwich, as City clawed back United's lead. It all came down to the final day of the season. United won their match at Sunderland. City, playing at home against QPR, needed to win to clinch the title on goal difference. What followed was the single most dramatic moment in Premier League history. City were losing 2-1, heading into injury time. The title was slipping away, back into the hands of United. The dream was turning into a nightmare. But then Edin Dzeko scored in the 92nd minute to make it 2-2. Hope flickered, and then with just seconds remaining came the moment. Aguero. The commentary is iconic, but people often forget who started that move. It was Carlos Tevez picking up the ball in midfield, driving forward before finding his compatriot. Sergio Aguero's goal won the league for Manchester City in the most improbable, heart-stopping fashion imaginable. And Carlos Tevez, the man who had been exiled, the man who was finished, was a Premier League champion once again this time, at the expense of his former club. The ultimate revenge was complete. Tevez's journey is a roller coaster of emotion, loyalty, and controversy. It's a prime example of the kind of complex character that makes football so compelling. If you love deep dives into the lives of legendary players like this, the icons who shaped the modern game, then make sure you subscribe to Legends in Football and hit that notification bell. We have so many more stories to tell about classic rivalries, underdog triumphs, and the moments that truly define the beautiful game. You won't want to miss what's coming next. He would spend one more season at Manchester City before moving on to Juventus in Italy, where he continued to be successful, winning 2 Serie A titles. He was still a world-class player, still a fighter. But you always felt his heart was somewhere else. Europe was a stage for his talents, but Argentina was his home. And in 2015, at the age of 31, still in his prime, he made the decision that for him was the only one that ever truly mattered. He turned his back on the glamour and money of European football and went home. He returned to Boca Juniors. The prodigal son, the boy from Fuerte Apache, was back where he belonged. The reception he received was euphoric. La Bombonera was a sea of blue and gold, a cauldron of noise and passion, all for him. He wasn't returning for one last payday or a gentle slide into retirement. He came back to compete, to win, to feel the unique pressure and love of the club that had made him. He led Boca to the Argentine League and Cup double in his first season back. He was home. You could see it in his smile and the way he played. The ferocious snarl of the competitor was still there, but it was accompanied by a look of contentment, of peace. His story is a reminder that a player's career isn't just a list of clubs and trophies. It's a human journey. Tevez was a complex figure driven by a fierce need to be loved and respected. He was a mercenary in the eyes of some, a man who followed the money and his own selfish desires. To others, he was the ultimate loyalist, but his loyalty wasn't to a contract or a club. It was to his own code, his own heart, and ultimately to his roots. He was a player who could inspire devotion and incite hatred in equal measures sometimes from the very same fans. He was El Apache, the fighter from the streets who conquered the world, but never forgot where he came from. He played the game his way on his terms, and for that, whether you loved him or loathed him, you had to respect him. He truly was a legend of the game. And that's where this incredible football story concludes. What a journey, right? I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment stood out to you the most? The welcome to Manchester billboard, the refusal to play, or his emotional return to Boca? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you. Thanks for watching.